We're here. We're
We're
live.
here.
How are you?
Doing good. Yeah. I've been working on getting back to a daily practice that I'd like to get into. And it's a struggle. It's always a struggle to define how you want to change and approach making changes or improving habits or moving forward. And then it's hard to figure out structures for developing those and actually following through on those. So that's kind of what's been going through my head
Mhm.
today. How are you doing?
Same thing, bro. So we just talked for a
Mm-hmm.
while we were, troubleshooting this
Yeah.
video thing.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I'm using my mirrorless cam as a
Mm-hmm.
webcam, and we're slowly figuring out what the best uh, settings are for the streaming.
Yeah.
But we just agreed to have a little bit of a more personal talk and not go over at like before we were talking about a lot of what this podcast is,
Mm-hmm.
the project, and a lot about the conversation guidelines
Mm-hmm.
and the philosophy behind these dialogues.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since we kind of go a little bit personal.
Yeah.
So
And I think,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off, just quickly, all that other stuff, I feel good about where we're at, I guess, in our sort of stage for developing the podcast. I think we need to clarify those, not guidelines, but things that we know make for conversations that we want to have, and then develop some sort of a video that kind of overviews that so that people can understand through that and through kind of a description what it's all about. So that's something that we're going to work on. But yeah, to your point, sorry I cut you off.
No, that's exactly right. And I was just gonna say that I think we've we've both been struggling for a long time in terms of balance of
Mm-hmm.
productivity, creativity, self-development, and designing our lifestyle, and
Mm-hmm.
just trying to have a balance between all the chaos that goes
Yeah.
along with everything that we're trying to change, I think.
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. It's like there's so many ways we could approach it, and man, it's funny. Like so many times we've started something where over the last 4 or 5 years we've gone, okay, this is the thing. I'm doing this. This is my schedule. I'm gonna do this. A lot to do with like morning sequential things that we do every day, and I think more than once we've made like a contract where we've actually like sent it over to each other and we've signed it and we've made like an actual contract. Um,
We have, dude.
that's funny, dude. That's funny.
Looking back on
Because
that, looking back on that, do you think that worked
I think it definitely
back then?
made it more serious. See, here's the thing. It's like there's so many different reasons for why things change or like why things um
Okay.
yeah, so there's so many different reasons for why we bail or why things change. We've talked about it a lot. A lot of it has to do with the natural ebb and flow of kind of motivation. Some of it has to do with life circumstances. Some of it has to do with, um, you know, suffering, not suffering, but like wanting to endure something in order to make progress. Sort of that short term negative that short term negative for the long term positive. That
Yeah.
after a certain amount of time, you just go, man, this isn't worth it today. Like, I just don't want to do these things that I told myself that I would do. And that always sort of happens. And that's something that we've, defined and then started something over again. And then it occurs again. Everyone's aware of this. Everybody is aware of this.
Yeah.
This happens to everybody. Um, I think, yeah, it's funny. It's like I've never felt it what we've discussed. I've never felt it to be entirely like a self-help or like improvement. It's totally, for me, it's like experimenting with how much can I define my actions, emotional state, and change, as because people change over time. Like people do
Yeah,
change. You're a whole new different person on the cellular level every what 7 years or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think what's always been super interesting for me is like how much can we define and then put in place a systematic approach so that we can design what happens in the future for our experiential self and our experience of the world and ourselves in the world.
Hmm.
Is that kind of where
Right,
you've
and
come from?
it's exactly that. Designing what you want to experience,
That's it.
designing
Yeah.
your experience. But I also, yeah, I agree with it not being self-help or
Mm-hmm.
like motivational. It's just realizing that both outer reality and inner reality are malleable.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have to do to have the transformation that you want?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from the place where you want or need transformation, right?
Yeah.
And it may come from a positive place, which is the inspiration of where you want to be or
Right.
what you want to become, but it also comes from a negative place where you're
Yeah.
frustrated or you're kind of angry on the inside of what's
Yeah.
going on.
There's two ways to
And
look
yeah,
at it. It's like angry at what's going on, but it's also just like this could be more than it is. Or it's like those two, of course, like everything are unified and the negative and the positive exist simultaneously. And it's
yeah,
like we've talked about this before that we don't want it to be the case, but it's almost always the case that for us, one of the largest motivators is that latter reason. The reason of
yeah.
like what I'm doing right now is not fulfilling my interpretation of my goals and aims of where I want to be and how I want to be behaving. It's like, you know, and a lot of our
Yeah.
things come from, at least for me, we've talked about creativity and you know multidisciplinary art and creating and making content and yeah, making stuff. For me, it's about I want to be able to increase my ability to make stuff and follow through on writing the things I want to write and projects I want to write and not losing momentum on those things. And so,
But yeah,
yeah, but
well,
just quickly to go back to
you
the point, I guess what I mainly wanted to talk about in that point, what I wanted to make at that point is most often our motivating factor is that notion of what I'm doing right now isn't what the dream of
right.
what I could accomplish every day or what my goal is for my experience of the
And
world.
I'd say that won't end, that won't change,
Hmm.
and that's probably a good thing. Maybe it
What
has to
won't
do
change?
with
What
the
won't
fact that
change?
it won't it what won't change is that you'll always lose momentum.
Yes, yeah, you will.
And I think that has to do with the personality trait of agreeableness or like not conforming, not settling.
Hmm.
Maybe that's just intelligence. The fact that you're able to be sensitive to the fact that you're ready to move to the next place.
Hmm.
Maybe it has to do with urgency too. The fact that you want things to happen and
Yeah.
not later, not in a year. Like that
Hmm.
you're aware you can action and and transform
Yeah.
your surroundings and your reality,
Do
your
you think that
experience.
sense of urgency is, of course, a large part of it? I think we generate the urgency.
Yeah,
So I guess to clarify the point earlier, the majority of our motivating factor is our generated urgency about what we feel like we could accomplish if we dedicated ourselves to the transformation in the ways that we want.
right.
Um, you know.
which is the hardest thing to do, maybe.
Yeah,
Because you have to sacrifice the short-term
you
pleasures,
do. Yeah.
and that's so hard.
Yeah, that's one of the things. A couple years ago, I remember I was like, man, we gotta have a Skype, and I talked to you. I was like, I was out for a run, and I was like, you have to want, and this is obvious. You hear it. I'm sure it's out there everywhere. Another thing I'm gonna sidebar that. Another thing we've talked about is the fact that statements that you've heard your whole life, they slowly lose meaning, I believe, and that sometimes we'll say a sentence or a statement that seems not cliche, but like we've heard it so many times before, and then it gets imbued with this insane personal meaning that's way more deep than you've heard. And I don't know, I wonder if that's the same feeling that, whenever that phrase began to come about, if it that's the genuine expression of it. But I guess as an example, one of them is let me know what you think. Like I would always say, hey, let me know what you think, and I'd just throw that out there. But that statement of like, no, let me know what you think. Like it's important for me to understand your structure that you've developed in your perspective of this thing. And it's not just like a synonym for what do you say, or like, because the notion of it is like passing off the conversation to the other person. So let me know what you think can be dissolved into just this general meaning of like your turn, or like now you go, I want to. But saying let me know what you think is so much more personal, and like I want to hear a genuine response from you. And one day like that just clicked for me, and I went, this is a completely different meaning behind this than just saying let me know what you think, and how I used it in my sentences.
Yeah.
I don't know how that came about. Oh, the point was when I went running and I realized like I have to want to be uncomfortable in order to make progress, if in running at least, and in most things. You have to want to be uncomfortable and have negative feelings in the short term. It's not like,
Right.
I guess sometimes you can push through it and just like get it over with, but you're gonna get the most progress if that's something that you like, hey man, I want to get up and just grind through a run, and it's gonna feel horrible, but I want that because X and Y, these are the goals, and this is what I'm dreaming of.
So I think that comes out of profound realization that the new habits will bring new experience. And if you don't have that deep meaning, then it's just gonna be unbearable suffering. And
Yeah.
like, who wants to spend your days being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And like, nobody wants that. But if you realize that, discipline is your own freedom, your own discipline is your freedom.
Yeah, Jocko Willing.
Jocko, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. But the first time I heard that, it didn't come from him. Like later, I discovered that it was like his quote.
Right.
But I love that.
Yeah.
I think and it may not be discipline. It may just be, well, yeah, it could be discipline, but I like framing it as, because I want to remove the forced
Yeah.
element of the discipline concept.
Yeah.
I don't want to be forced to do anything. So
Nobody does.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if I don't want to force myself either. I want to
Yeah.
make myself want
Yeah.
to do the things that will serve me
Yeah.
in
So
the long term.
totally. And I think one of the things that happens is when we've defined a structure, or here's the goal, this is what I'm going to do every day. When we design that, or whenever someone has a thought like, you know what, I'm going to do this every day, they have a clear felt, they have a clear feeling of why they're doing it. It's not just a notion, it's not a sentence. It's an experience of knowing why you want to do something or make a change. And I think what happens is over time, a couple days, couple more days, you get in, new, like an email comes, like you're dealing with work, like stuff happens, and you remember like, oh, I wanted to do this thing because of X, but you don't have that same attached experience to that reason, like, because of X. You just like know that you say that, but it doesn't have that same impact. So it's like on the scales of what drives your behavior, the want to be comfortable or the want to just have comfort grows, and the understanding of wanting to have negative emotion decreases, and it just passes that line, and you go, nah, fuck it, I'm just gonna hang out and sleep in again, even though, say, the goal is to wake up early, and it doesn't work out.
But could we say that that's a good thing too? Because dude, every time
It
that
is a good
happens to me
thing.
where I lose momentum, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm going back to low energy mode or something.
Yeah.
I kind of go into some self defeating arguments in my head where why did I lose momentum? I was doing
Yeah.
so good. I was
Yeah.
being on point with all my
Yeah.
discipline and new habits and
Yeah.
new. But I think that kind of guilt element
Hmm.
makes the bounce effect
Yeah.
harder
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, way more extreme. So if we can maybe figure out a way to understand that there's a pendulum balance, like we used to
Yeah.
say, and kind of be okay with, I don't know, but the thing is,
Yeah.
I don't want to like pat myself in the back and say like this is normal. Go ahead and
Right.
watch and
Yeah.
whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's so tricky.
So
Yeah.
hard.
You don't
Yeah.
want to be like, oh, I'm gonna relax just because, that's a part of the process, and this is just, I'm gonna bounce effect back. It's like,
Mhm.
that pendulum thing. That's the transmutation of the like hermetic, like alchemy type stuff, of
Yeah.
like trying to be aware. And this is where mindfulness comes in. It's like, I guess, a couple things. The first thing is, do you think that if you're able to watch your thoughts and consistently be conscious and aware of what's going on in your head, if it's easier to avoid falling back into traps and maybe going into the ebb earlier than you thought it would, if there's an ebb and a flow?
Dude,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
I think the ability to observe your thoughts,
is massive, dude.
first of all, it kind of gives you a step back
Yeah,
from all the self illusions that we tell
yeah.
ourselves.
Identifying with the illusions. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
most of the time, the temporary pleasures are just self deceptions,
Yeah,
where you're like 100% sure that this is the right thing to do right now.
yeah,
That my ego needs this and
yeah.
it's serving me.
Yeah, and by the way, your mind will develop the most perfect arguments and
Yeah,
logical statements, and
100%.
it will become so logical that you'll be able to not refute the behavior or habit that you're trying to change. And that's so funny. That's so funny. It's like your mind will just convince yourself not to do the thing that you want to do, or not do. Like your will gets superseded by yourself, that's generating logical arguments that it knows you will agree with and believe. That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but also it's tangible and practical because
Mm-hmm.
the pleasure that comes right now
Yeah, say a
is
food,
so
say
real.
say eating
It's
some sweet,
yeah,
some ice cream.
right.
Yeah,
Or avoiding the suffering of going for a run.
right. Yeah,
That's real. That's something
yeah,
you get right now, and
yeah,
it's practical and it's instant. And
yeah.
the future is not real
Yet, yeah,
yet. Exactly.
yeah,
So it's also more practical to do the thing that that
Yeah,
in
immediately
the
practical. Yeah.
immediately practical, right?
Yeah, it's that immediate thing, man. It's that immediate thing. And I guess
Which becomes logical. It becomes totally
it can
logical
be
to do
logical.
the thing that
Yeah,
gives you a boost right now or
totally.
gratification.
And
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
I mean, the culture we're in, and it's increasingly becoming this way, is becoming instant gratification like mania. Like YouTube videos with shorter and shorter cuts between the shots, and you know, all that stuff, you know, quick music that gets to the chorus in 30 seconds and everyone can sing along, because by the time the chorus comes around at a minute, it's already, everyone knows it, and it's something simple, and everyone just wants that immediate understanding, immediate content, immediate. And it's I think there must be an influence en masse of just everyone who's getting more used to getting into that state where they just, you know, that immediate thing of like, no, I'm not going to go for a run. It's getting harder, I guess. My point is that our current state of media and cell phone and technology doesn't help the battle against immediate gratification. It just increases
Exactly.
the.
No, it increases it because
Yeah,
it's all based on comfort.
yeah,
All technology, it's so that you get things faster, so that you get things easier,
yeah, dude.
and
That's so true. It's like
yeah,
comfort is like is a main reason for technology from the begin, like fire.
but because
Comfort, dude.
we
Comfort
want
is a
to,
massive part. Yeah.
but that's because the biggest truth is suffering and
Yeah,
pain. So
that's true, man.
we all want to
Yeah.
have less of that.
Yeah.
We all want to have less of that. So
Yeah.
and transformation is the opposite from that. It's more pain and more suffering,
Yeah,
and life is
now though.
already unbearable. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Man, it's so
So
complicated. It's so complicated. And you also, there's also this need though to not overdo it, because then the rebound gets way worse. You know, we were talking about productivity the other day, and
yeah.
it's like,
Hmm.
if you do way more work than you can handle, then you're shot for the next like day or two, and you got to take more time off, and then it's like you get stressed because you're taking the time off. And it's that balance, man. It's all about balance and taking on as much as you can take on, knowing that you can maintain it. It's like that
Exactly.
it's like that equation, but that equation is so ambiguous and weird that it's hard to, that you can't mathematically just, you know, my motivation quantified by X times my need for change, you know, divided by the time I have plus, you know, you can't do that. It's yeah. So what's the solution? What can we do? Do you think there's
Yeah,
a
that's
do
what I
you
was doing.
sorry, I've been going off, but do you think there's something to be said about incorporating that discipline, like just do it even though you don't want to? Do you think there's a part of incorporating that in those moments where you begin to fade in your understanding, or is the solution to maintain that understanding at all costs, so that you just know what it's all about and you want to do the stuff?
Man, it's so hard, and
Hmm.
I think it's different for everyone. But if we're trying to come up with a general
Yeah.
idea of this issue, I would I would say that first of all, when you say maintaining the discipline or
Yeah.
the new understanding, I think there's an illusion there because
Yeah.
you can't maintain. I think it's a living thing. It's a dialogue with yourself,
Yeah.
and we're not robots.
Hmm.
So it's for the monkey mind, it's just completely illogical to have more suffering
Right.
when all you want to do is lessen the pain that's
Hmm.
natural to life.
Hmm.
So I think that's the main issue. Well, do you go with it, or do you have to fight it at all costs?
You mean go with just the monkey mind and let it do its thing and then regain control?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Because maybe what makes you have that new wave of energy,
Yeah.
and because you'll never be there, right? You'll never, like, it's a process
Yeah.
that won't ever end, right? So if you're trying to get somewhere new,
Hmm.
maybe you think that you need to stick to it until you get there.
Hmm.
But that's not entirely true, because you'll never get there. You'll always have something new to change. You'll always have a new habit to incorporate.
Right.
So I think if you're trying to be perfect and not bounce back,
Hmm.
I think you're making things worse for yourself. But
Yeah.
if you pat yourself in the back and you're always like, this is okay,
Yeah.
then you lose the self-judgment that makes you be like, I don't want to be fat, I'm lazy, and I'm angry at myself
Yeah.
for doing this thing. And I think that's a good thing, to
Right.
not let yourself off the hook.
Right. I think for the sake of, experimenting with changing habits and transformation and stuff like that, I feel like I want to believe that it's possible to maintain motivation through what normally would be a like pause in your new um, like the passion for making that change. I think I want to believe that there's a way to sustain it, and I feel like there
Okay,
there
we've talked
must
about
be
this.
there must be, but
We've, yeah, there is. I think there is, and we have talked about this before,
yeah,
and we came up with a solution, I think.
did
Um,
we?
yeah, do you remember the
Right.
plateau theory? Because I think the most overwhelming process
Yeah.
is where you're making changes, right? Like you're stuck in this
Yeah.
experience
Right.
and you don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So you start pushing. You
Yeah.
start pushing and you go like this.
Suffering short term. Yeah.
You can't always go, like, you can't always be improving. You have
Hmm.
to, like, make, I think it's about a strategy, because
Right.
if you want to be perfect always, you crash and burn, and then
Yeah.
you're back where you started almost. But if you make like a slight adjustment and then you're comfortable with that slight adjustment, you hit the
Yeah.
new plateau, and then
Yeah.
you're there for a while, you maintain it, and when it establishes itself, then you can improve another little thing, and then you're like slowly getting there instead of
Yeah.
trying to like make a straight line up.
Okay, so then I guess can we agree that in this discussion right now, it's our understanding that you can't continuously line up.
I
You
think so.
can't continuously. However,
You can, but you can't without crashing.
right.
or
Without
hitting
a
or hit
large rebound.
or hitting a new plateau.
Right. So I guess then my new goal, hopeful goal, is to reach plateaus without going below the plateau that you'd reached in
Mhm.
your like rebound thing. So you allow
And in our
yourself to slow the improvement, but you don't allow yourself to pat yourself on the back, and so you go, dip below where your plateau had reached. Is
Yeah, I
that
think so. I think so, and not making it too hard on yourself, because life's already almost unbearable.
yeah.
So you don't want to like go into full chaos. You need to be
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah. So like the goal for me in all this, this all sounds, I guess, kind of ambiguous and abstract, but the main goal for me in thinking this way and all this stuff is to gain as much control over my will of myself in uh my experience of the world and in actions that I take.
Hmm.
So actions can be response as well. It's just control over mind and body, basically.
Right.
Um, and
Which
in yeah,
we gone through that process, and I think maybe too focused on the mental part of it and the
Yeah.
psychological and the philosophical. But
Right.
at least on my end, I'm going out of the process where it became a lot more mental than physical, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
detached myself from my my focus on maintaining the physical health and
Yeah.
progress, because I was like too much into meditation and trying to figure out the stuff in the thought
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah.
But
There.
we've been talking that maybe if we go the other way around, go to the body mastery process,
Yeah.
the mind comes along with that.
I think. I think. I think I would be careful to say that that's always the case. But I think it.
Yeah.
But I think it's true in that. Because you could say you could just be like a gym rat, and you could just go to the
Hmm.
gym. You could just lift weights, and the whole time you could just be
Trapped
have
in.
zero control over your mental state and what's going on, and you could end up like, if your goal was to be like a bodybuilder and you were just like cut and you were super strong, and you could have made almost zero mental. Do you think it's possible for that to happen with almost no gain over your conscious um, malleability and will, or do you think that it's so hand in hand that even someone like that in that scenario is getting, yeah, a massive conscious control
not
boost?
not I wouldn't say massive, but I don't think you can.
It's all about those mind gains, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But you can't have body gains without having mind control, because or maybe not awareness practice,
Yeah.
but willpower and discipline practice.
Right, that's
Because
huge. That's huge.
it takes that to transform your body, even though you may
Yeah.
be completely um, synced with your monkey mind.
Yeah.
Even if you're completely identified with your thoughts, and if you think you are what you think,
Right.
well, you're not that conscious.
Right.
But if you have discipline,
Mm-hmm.
you could still transform your life and your experience. And I think that's big, though.
True. Yeah, it's like the more you identify with your thoughts, the more probable it is that you're gonna succumb to monkey business. Call it monkey
But yeah,
business.
but also, what are the reasons for you to be transforming your reality?
Right.
Because you could be doing it for just egocentric intentions.
Yeah, right. But
So,
either way, you're right. I keep somehow exhaling into this microphone. It gets weird. But I feel like the like will is the number one. So I'm feeling like will is my number one target. Will, the ability, and even that guy who's forcing himself to go to the gym or whatever and suffer through whatever he's doing. I love how knowledgeable I am on this gym guy. I have no idea
who
uh,
he is?
who he is, uh, but man, being able to enact will is like number. It's like number one. I feel like it's like number one because that's it. It's that the will is your ability to say no. This is not how whatever is happening is going to make me react. No, that's not the thought that I'm going to let automatically do a chain of events, long term potentiation. I'm not going to just let that flow. It's programming that's been stored in my mind over however many years. I'm going to enact this change, or I'm going to switch it so that this happens, and develop those neural patterns and those neural networks. And it's that ability to in the moment consciously have will, and
Hmm.
that's what. So yeah,
I
it's mindfulness. That's the it keeps coming back to that for me.
it
It's
is,
like
but I
meditation
have
practices. Yeah.
I have huge issues with the concept of will, though.
Okay.
Should we try to define what that is? Because
I
um,
want to hear the issues first.
issues are mainly that if I need to have meaning behind the decision to do something, because otherwise, if I'm just like I'm doing this because I'm doing this,
Yeah.
and if I don't do it, is that's because I don't have enough willpower? That doesn't really make sense for me.
Say that again.
Whenever I want to do something
Yeah.
without real meaning or a very clear intention,
Yeah.
I don't have willpower. And I don't know if that's because my intention isn't rooted enough or because my willpower isn't exercised enough. So I
Yeah.
don't know what that is, and I don't know what drives willpower. Is it meaning and intention, or
Hmm.
is willpower like a muscle that you can train and you can practice so that you can get to do something even though you don't have the right intentions or
Right.
you don't have a big meaning behind it?
Yeah.
My experience is that my willpower without real meaning and like a true vision for the future, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah. I
But
think
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know if
go.
that's because I haven't really practiced it.
Yeah. See, I'm gonna go both and on this. I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go
Mm-hmm.
both and.
That's always the way to go.
It's always,
Almost always, yeah.
it's almost
It's
impossible
both.
for that to be wrong. Both and is almost universally true. In
It's always the
some,
safest way. Yeah.
it's not only safe. I think it's the most true. Uh, I think that will is a muscle. I think it is a muscle that you can um, work on, and that's something that I do want to work on. However, I think that it's also influenced by your perceived value in whatever the thing you want to do has to yourself. Like I think it's influenced by who knows how many factors and variables that we couldn't name right now. But I think it is influenced by a lot of things, but will is something that you can work on. So if there is something that you know in your heart that is good, something that's good, and you want to do it, but it's going to cause short term suffering, you will be able to still at least go through the motions. And maybe that's the thing. It's in those moments where your passion for it or whatever's going on in your day or your life is conflicting with that feeling of passion and motivation. Then it's when you bring in that will that you've exercised somehow through whatever means. And I think that's the goal. You're not buying it.
I'm thinking that without meaning,
Yeah.
you don't you don't go far on willpower. But and the meaning could be completely egocentric or unconscious or powered by just earthly earthly pleasures,
Yeah.
for to say it vaguely, but because I've always had an issue with useless productivity
Mm-hmm.
and hustle without what's the word? Hustle without, I don't want to say meaning again, but
Yeah.
maybe that's it.
I can maybe pick up.
Yeah,
For me, it's
please.
it's meaningless productivity, knowing that,
Hmm.
or not meaningless, just um, hard work and constant productivity without having a clear understanding of its valuable impact. It's not understanding
The bigger picture.
the bigger picture, and how what you're doing is going to impact anything in a way that aligns with your value system or your um, hierarchy of importance. It's like, man, I'm doing this stuff all day, and I think it's twofold. One of them for me is I'm doing this all day and I can't really tell what the valuable impact of all of this work is going to have at the end of the day. And then the second fold is I think anybody could do, or not anybody, but so many people could do this one thing. And this could maybe be done automated a little better, or there could be thousands of people that could enact this thing in the same exact way that I'm doing it. I like to feel like the actions that I'm having are align with what I feel like are unique attributes to myself, or like
Right.
that allows me to bring something that's unique in this circumstance from my perspective, as opposed to just a repeated thing that could be automated or done by anybody.
Right. So I think that's a sense of legacy, a sense of a future, a future big picture, a clarity on where you're going and what the final outcome should be.
I think
Um,
not necessarily. Just to clarify, I don't think it's like a legacy. It's just like I like to feel like I'm a unique person that's useful for a unique reason, not necessarily useful just because these tasks are tasks that could be done, you know, and
yeah, I think that's pretty much the same thing because when I say legacy, I mean a real sense of what your purpose is.
yeah,
And if you're hustling real hard every day with urgency, with efficiency, with that focus in mind and a real purpose and a true intention,
yeah,
I think that can be maintained. But
right,
if you're just like killing yourself for other reasons, which may be a lot of other reasons, I think that's where you crash. And maybe the fact that you have a goal and a bigger picture and a future plan,
yeah,
I think that can power you to be as productive and as effective as you want to be on an everyday basis. But
yeah,
I feel like I've tried to do that and to like work really hard every day, get as much things as possible done on a day without a real direction and a real overall meaning of what my legacy will be or what my purpose is and how I'm of service to the community.
yeah,
Because I've been powered by just the need to make certain amount of money or to get a paycheck or get that job or create this. And creativity is something that always have moved my drive me to be productive.
yeah,
But I've always struggled with the issue that comes from working hard and not having meaning behind it.
yeah,
And that's where I go into these phases where I'm like, I don't like the system. I don't fit here. I don't want to be a
yeah,
part of this. It's a rat race that doesn't serve me.
yeah,
But other times where I kind of see a real purpose for doing stuff, I do want to be a part of the system and I want to be entrepreneurial and I want to be productive and have a lot of energy and better myself. And
right,
I think that all has come always from a vision of the future that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So
What do you
that's
think of that?
No, I totally agree, and I think that that's sort of the larger picture, the larger impact that some of like a main habit I'd like to bring in is to increase my meditation practice daily because the impact that that'll have on awareness and you know being conscious in each moment to understand what thoughts are happening and why and maybe what's going on with that and being able to redesign neural patterns in order to be more empowered in my ability to design my experience. I feel like what you're talking about is the larger implications of not just what doesn't allow a habit that you're trying to bring into practice to continue, but something that is more larger and influences your work life and your all behaviors that
Hmm.
you have. It's like there needs to be that tie of an understanding of overarching meaning behind every single action in order to feel that motivation for it or in order to feel that importance and value in it. And so I guess, yeah, in terms of an overarching statement when it comes to habits is you need to understand how that aligns with your values and meaning so that you can in that process exercise will and then use it for that process because it's all connected. And I think that's, yeah, I think that's totally true.
But then that makes me think that having a lot of sense of the future kind of disconnects you from being immersed in your present experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I miss that. I think that there was a time in my life where I wasn't that much concerned of the future, where I was just flowing in the things that were going on at the time in my present experience. And I was definitely enjoying more of life.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I feel like I miss that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because I know the ability to plan to the future and to have the intention to go somewhere and
Mm-hmm.
become, that's intelligence. And I think that's a very good thing.
That's a long-term thing.
But also, how do you enjoy? Isn't because you need to be able to enjoy every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And part of enjoying every day is knowing why that is happening and why that is occurring in the bigger picture, right? So it's both and
Right.
it's both and it's
Both hand,
all
both hand. Thanks. Yeah.
yeah. Someone just said there's no sound. Uh, so I have no idea what happens. It always seems like when we record these, there's always sound in the recording, but it for some reason doesn't get streamed at the same time. Um, should I hang up and then check the recording and then start it up again just to make sure that this is even being recorded?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
All right.
Call me back then.
I'll be right back.
All right.